So I've been restoring this thorn hedge, predominantly hawthorn, some blackthorn along its length, sat on an earth bank. This earth bank has slumped. Originally it would have been faced vertically. It would have likely been faced with stone, as is often the case here in Wales. Also in the southwest, we commonly see that in Devon, on Exmoor and Dartmoor particularly, places in Somerset, even in Wiltshire, certainly in Dorset and up in Cumbria as well. So in these cases, the earth bank formed the main part of the barrier, usually sat at about 4 feet high, although places on the moors you might see them double that. It could be an 8 feet high bank, and the vegetation then ran along the top, and it was almost an added extra, generally maintained by laying. Oftentimes they weren't trimmed at all, laid periodically in between times, left to grow on. So in this case you can see that the bank has slumped. This is commonplace. That doesn't matter to us too much. We're not using this hedgerow anymore to retain livestock. We simply want to create that highway for wildlife, that habitat. So as part of the restoration, we're pleaching and laying what we can, and this will be done in conjunction with replanting. We're fortunate here that we've got access to this woodland. There is elder, hazel, hawthorn, even some blackthorn, flowering cherry in the understory. We can go there in the winter after the leaves have dropped. Once the saplings have fallen dormant, we can lift those gently and use them to fill in any gaps. You can see that this hedgerow is pretty gappy in places. I've gone through the laying process in the normal way. I've cut part way through, I've retained the living tongue of wood, and this allows the sap to still be drawn up into the roots along the stem and keep this stem alive. What we're going to find is that all along the newly horizontal stems we're going to get abundant vertical growth. This is going to increase density. This can then either be maintained by trimming, that's just going to encourage more horizontal growth, give us that added density, or we can allow it to grow up and then lay it again. Probably on the second time of laying on a hedge such as this, where the bank has slumped, we would support the new hedge on stakes and use the bindings along the top. That would give us that structure and give us the barrier that we're after. So this is only the first stage in a restoration, and like anything tree related, it doesn't happen overnight. We've got to allow nature to take its time, do its thing, and it will be several growing seasons before we see a real improvement. So this initial stage is less about aesthetics. Certainly it doesn't look as attractive as a newly laid hedge with younger material set on stakes with the attractive woven binding on the top, but in the years to come that's exactly what we'll have. You can see the size here of some of the thorns that I've laid, but when laying a hedge, really it's only the size that the person laying it can manage that limits us. So long as you can get a stem down and under control, so long as it retains that living tongue, the stem will stay alive. So in this case, where the stems were tall and heavy, I reduced the weight, so I thinned out the tops, got it to a weight that I could manage, made the cut. This was all done with a chainsaw, and then lowered it gently into position. Once it's in position, it's imperative that it's held down tightly and supported. So in this case, I've used bonds. These are just hazel rods, and you can see they've been put over the hedge at intervals. They're dug into the ground, or they're tucked behind a pleacher. They go over the top, they're pulled down tightly, and they hold everything in place. This will ensure that when the new growth comes, it's coming from low down. What we don't want is any livestock to be able to crawl underneath. Although this hedge isn't going to be used for the retention of livestock, it's by laying it in such a way that if asked to, it could, that we're going to create that habitat. It's the small mammals that really want to be close to the ground and have that protection. An open, derelict hedgerow, as you know, the magpies, the jays, the predators are just gonna get in there and take those vulnerable animals. We need to create that dense barrier that gives them that cover. We're going to leave some standards in the hedge. A tree at intervals is increasing the habitat value of our hedgerow. Trees would have been left, they would have provided wood fuel, building timber, they would have been managed by pollarding. So in that way, they're never shading out the thorns below, but for the smallholder or the farmer, they're an asset. And as I say, they're also increasing not just the aesthetic quality of the hedgerow, but the habitat value of it as well. So in this case, we're leaving some hawthorns that are the best form, giving us that lovely shape. And in all truth, they'd unlikely pleach very well anyway. As these thorns get older, the timber gets more brittle. As we come down to the base, the grain of the wood becomes twisted and knotted. There's every chance that we'd make that cut and that the stem would snap off altogether. In this case, better to leave it, let it grow, increase the habitat value. And this is a section that I did last year. Just the same, overstood, thin, gappy. The bramble had really taken over, certainly became the dominant species. The thorn twisted, tall, awkward, heavy, but got in here, laid what was available, and you can see, well, the hawthorn is abundant now with berries. It's put on 4 feet of growth in some circumstances. The blackthorn too is prolific. As you look down the hedgerow, you can see the increased density here. That's exactly what we'll be hoping for with the stretch on the other side of those thorns there that we're currently working on. We've harvested the fruits of the hedgerow. We've had a lot of sloes. We've got the sloe gin on the go. We've had rose hips. We've had elderberries. We've also taken a good deal of firewood. So any of the arisings that come from the hedge, we've used some to make dead hedges around the holding, but we've got a good deal of firewood as well. This will in fact be used for charcoal making come next spring and the early part of next summer, which feels a long way off at the moment. We're only just into the autumn, but we're going to be using the wood that's around the place that we've gleaned from the hedgerows. We're going to be converting it into charcoal. This then is a sustainable practice, great for barbecue fuel. We've got some places up the road that may be using it for cooking, and of course we'll be running courses here at Cliffacre. It'll be great to welcome some of you here, show you the methods in making charcoal. That's something to come further along the line. Finally, I just wanted to show you quickly the blackthorn ring. You know that this had just been an area of scrub. It had encroached from the hedgerow as blackthorn does, and perhaps it could have been managed by just cutting it and burning it and trying to reclaim that pasture. But in this case, where we've got a site where we intend to teach, we thought we could create a space where people could learn outside, surrounded by a hedgerow. It just seemed like a fitting sculpture to be on the land here. So I laid it in the usual way. I've pleached and laid, but in this case, you may know that I put a set of stakes and a set of binders on each side. It's given me a really rigid structure. Something that's really strong. There were gaps in this one too. I had to fill those with dead wood, but the nature of blackthorn sees that it sends up suckering growth. Suckering means that not only will it regrow from the laid stems and from the stump, but also from the roots. It's going to send up new growth. In this way, it does tend to encroach into pasture. But what it's doing in this circumstance is filling in the gaps. The dead wood gave us a structure that we could work with. They filled in the gaps between the living wood, and the suckering growth is now taking over, it's filling those in. So I've run the trimmer over it. Ideally, you don't want to be trimming hedges till later on in the year, once the wildlife have had the chance to benefit from the fruits of the hedgerow. Quite often you'll see that people get out and they trim their hedge in September, big agricultural hedges I'm talking about, and ideally they would leave them till after Christmas, give the wildlife a chance to forage the berries, the fruits, which they quite often rely on to see them through the lean winter months. Well, in this case, I had already had all the sloes for the sloe gin, so it seemed perfectly acceptable to run the trimmer across it, tidy it up. We've still got a month or so left of the growing season, and this will now just encourage that horizontal growth. It's going to thicken up this structure still further. I'm really pleased with how that has come together. It's looking great. It's just going to improve year on year. So that's it. I want to thank you for signing up to the newsletter. I'm hoping to put more exclusive content on here, showing you a bit about what I'm doing, but perhaps more in depth than I'm able to do on Instagram. You'll also have easier access to courses, events that we hope to be holding here in the future. And so it's a good way to keep up to date, and I'm grateful to have you all along with me. I mustn't forget that this coming week, I've got the Wainwright Prize ceremony coming up on Wednesday. So we're going to be leaving here in Gower, heading to Chipping Norton in Oxfordshire, and going to the Farm Ed site. They've got several hundred acres, I believe, and are promoting regenerative farming. So that's something that I'm keen to see. We get an afternoon of food and drinks, and I get the chance to meet other authors. It's been a great experience for me. It's been a great year this year. Certainly it's humbling to be amongst such good company, good writers, and I'm looking forward to that. I'll make sure that I let you know how I get on, and we'll see how that goes. I'm currently writing again. It's lovely to be able to spend a bit of downtime in the wagon here. You can hear the sounds of nature all around. It's lovely then to be able to do some writing and put pen to paper. All the best to you. I'll speak to you soon.